Welcome to my channel. Support our channel by subscribing. Your subscription helps us grow and create more intriguing content like this. Now, let's dive into today's story. It was the Christmas season, and for James and Rachel, it should have been a time of celebration, a chance to unwind and bask in the warmth of family and friendship. The couple had always looked forward to this time of year, decorating their home, hosting holiday parties, and sharing intimate moments together. But this Christmas, something was different. Beneath the glittering lights and festive cheer, there was a dark undercurrent, a quiet tension that neither of them could escape. For James, the holidays were always a time of joy, filled with memories of family traditions and the deep connection he felt with Rachel. Over the years, they had built a life together, with shared hopes and dreams. But now, as the Christmas lights flickered on their front porch, James couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. Rachel, on the other hand, seemed distant. She was no longer the woman who would eagerly help him decorate the tree or plan the perfect Christmas dinner. Her smiles felt forced, and her gaze seemed distracted, often lingering on her phone or looking past him. Every time James tried to initiate a conversation, there was a subtle, unspoken disconnect. She would smile, but it never reached her eyes. It wasn't just the holiday stress. Something had changed between them, something that neither of them had acknowledged yet. In the weeks leading up to the party, James kept telling himself it was just the holiday chaos, that Rachel was simply overwhelmed by work and the busyness of life. But as the days passed, that internal voice of doubt grew louder, and he began to question what was really happening behind the closed doors of their marriage. The scene was set for a Christmas neither of them would ever forget. What started as a holiday of family traditions and love would soon turn into the unraveling of everything James thought he knew about his wife and their relationship. The secrets, the betrayals, the lies, they were all about to come to light under the most festive of circumstances, setting the stage for a Christmas that would mark the end of their old life together. James had always been the one to make Christmas special. He would hang the lights on the roof, arrange the garland around the fireplace, and spend hours cooking a holiday feast. He loved the idea of creating perfect moments, bringing a little bit of magic into the mundane. But this year, there was a new sense of urgency. The house was decorated with every detail meticulously planned, yet something felt out of place. Rachel's once engaged participation was now reduced to silence. While James was focused on creating the ideal holiday atmosphere, Rachel seemed lost in her thoughts. The excitement she usually radiated had been replaced by an almost palpable distance. She didn't seem to care about the Christmas plans, the tree, or even their dinner guests. It wasn't just that she was preoccupied, it was as if she were in a different world altogether. Their interactions were strained. James would excitedly show her a new decoration or ask for her opinion on the food, only to be met with distracted answers or quick dismissals. Her smile, once so genuine, now seemed forced. Even their usual light-hearted banter had faded into something distant and cold. There were small signs that James couldn't ignore. Rachel seemed to spend longer periods of time away from him, retreating to the study or going out for walks alone. When they did spend time together, it was often awkward, as if they were two strangers trying to hold on to the remnants of a connection that had already begun to fade. James began to notice how she would smile at her phone, her fingers scrolling furiously as she laughed softly at something someone had sent her. His heart sank with every shared moment between Rachel and her colleague Ethan, who had often been the one to send these texts. James couldn't place it, but something about Ethan made him uneasy. He had always been professional at work, but now he appeared to be more than just a colleague. Rachel's tone was warmer, her attention more focused on him, and when they spoke, there was a familiarity between them that felt too intimate to be purely platonic. James tried to push away his growing doubts, focusing instead on the final preparations for the Christmas party. But every time he saw Ethan and Rachel together, every subtle interaction that James couldn't ignore, he felt something tighten in his chest. Something was wrong. He couldn't prove it, but he could feel it. This year's Christmas was no longer just about joy and family. The season had taken on an ominous tone, and the tension was growing, waiting to be revealed. The night of the Christmas party arrived, and James tried to push his worries to the back of his mind. Guests filled the house, laughter echoed off the walls, and the food was served, but the heaviness that hung over him remained. Rachel was still distant, lost in her world, while Ethan appeared more than comfortable among their friends. He stood too close to Rachel, laughed too easily with her, and, to James's increasing discomfort, stole more than a few glances at her. The moment that would change everything came with the hanging of the mistletoe, a harmless Christmas tradition meant to spread some light-hearted joy. The party was in full swing, people were sipping wine and chatting, when someone, perhaps it was Ethan, told Rachel to stand under the mistletoe. It was all in good fun, everyone expecting a quick kiss on the cheek or an exaggerated kiss on the lips for the amusement of the guests. But what happened next shattered James's world. Under the mistletoe, Rachel and Ethan didn't just share a playful peck. They kissed, deeply, passionately. It wasn't just a kiss, it was a confession of something hidden, something that James had long feared but hadn't dared to acknowledge. It wasn't the act that struck him the hardest. It was the intimacy of it. The connection they shared was undeniable. And worse, it was so open and public, as if they had no care for the world around them. James froze, his heart pounding in his chest as he watched the two of them pull away from each other, both of them smiling in a way that made James sick to his stomach. His mind couldn't process what had just happened. How had it come to this? How had Rachel's betrayal happened so openly, so effortlessly? The laughter in the room felt like an assault on his senses. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think. His world had been turned upside down in that moment, and the reality of Rachel's infidelity became a harsh, painful truth. He didn't know how long he stood there, rooted to the spot, watching as Ethan and Rachel exchanged glances as though they had just shared the most ordinary of moments. When the party finally began to wind down, James couldn't hold it in any longer. His emotions were a storm of rage, confusion, and heartbreak. He had to confront Rachel. He needed to know the truth, to understand why she had done this to him, to their family. He found her in the quiet of the hallway, away from the noise of the remaining guests. There was no more pretending, no more smiles or festive cheer. "What was that, Rachel? What was that kiss?" His voice cracked as the pain hit him with full force. "Under the mistletoe, you kissed him like you've been doing it for months." Rachel's face went pale, and for a long moment, she said nothing. The guilt was written all over her face, and James knew he had been right all along. She had been hiding something from him, something far deeper than he had feared. Finally, after a long silence, Rachel broke down. She explained tearfully that the kiss with Ethan was not a mistake. It wasn't just a fleeting moment of passion. It was the culmination of months of emotional neglect. She admitted that she and Ethan had grown close over time, their emotional connection growing stronger with every conversation, every shared moment of vulnerability. Ethan had made her feel seen, heard, things that James had stopped doing years ago. The lack of emotional intimacy in their marriage had created a void that Rachel had filled with Ethan. As Rachel confessed, James's heart shattered. He had always believed in their love, in their marriage. How could it have come to this? Why hadn't she come to him with her feelings instead of seeking solace in another man's arms? He was hurt, but more than that, he was confused. He had failed to see the cracks in their marriage until it was too late. But the confession didn't stop there. Rachel admitted that the affair had been ongoing for months, with the emotional intimacy gradually turning physical. Each revelation felt like a knife in James's chest. The Christmas they had shared, the life they had built, it was all a lie. The confrontation had left James reeling. His emotions were raw, and every thought felt like it was stabbing him from the inside. The festive lights, the laughter from the party, everything that had once been a symbol of happiness now seemed like a cruel reminder of his pain. Rachel, too, was devastated by what had happened. She couldn't undo the past, couldn't fix the damage that had been done. She tried to apologize, to beg for forgiveness. But James was beyond words. How could he forgive her? The trust between them had been shattered beyond repair. The Christmas that should have been a celebration had now become a day he would never forget for all the wrong reasons. In the days that followed, James struggled with a decision he had never anticipated. Could he ever move past the betrayal, or had their relationship been irreparably broken? Rachel, in her guilt, offered to do whatever it took to rebuild their marriage, but James didn't know if he could ever look at her the same way again. Christmas, once a symbol of warmth and love, had been tainted forever. The memories of this holiday would linger in his mind, not as a time of joy, but as a painful chapter in their lives. The love they had shared was no longer enough to hold them together. Now, they both faced an uncertain future, one that would require healing, introspection, and a difficult decision about whether they could ever rebuild what had been lost. This Christmas had marked the end of an era for James and Rachel. Their marriage, once filled with love and trust, was now on the edge of collapse. The journey ahead was unclear. Would they be able to rebuild their relationship, or would they find themselves lost in the wreckage of their past? The story of their love, now overshadowed by betrayal, had taken a painful turn. For James, this was no longer about the Christmas he had envisioned. It was about finding the strength to face the truth, the courage to forgive or to walk away, and the wisdom to know that some things, no matter how hard you try, can never be the same. In the end, Christmas was no longer about the gifts or the decorations. It was about finding peace in the aftermath of heartbreak, about deciding whether love could truly survive the ultimate betrayal.